How you doing, guys? This is Eric from RuleTheWasteland.com, SecretOfTheInternet.com. Bitcoin has recently dealt what was being called a setback when it was denied an ETF. They're trying to create a Bitcoin ETF, exchange traded fund, which for those of you who don't know is a way that you can buy and sell pretty much anything in the form of a basically like a stock almost. So you can get it on the major exchanges, similar to the way they have gold ETFs, silver ETFs, and just other electronic means of owning shares of something without having directly purchasing the item. People had been talking about this thing for a long time, not a long time, you know, a couple of weeks, months, whatever. And this price of Bitcoin had been readily rising as it got closer to the decision of this, whether this ETF was going to allow it to be formed or not. And it had gotten up to almost $1,300 per Bitcoin, I think. And then it was, you know, denied, so there is not going to be a Bitcoin ETF, and a lot of people are calling this a setback. They think that it should have happened, and it price plummeted like 18 or 20% almost immediately. It's now back up at the time of this video to around, I think, 1180, something like that, $1,180 per Bitcoin. My thoughts on the matter are, I think that most of the reason that the people were championing this ETF was they just wanted the value of their Bitcoins to go up. They knew that if it was more readily able to be purchased in a more straightforward means through an ETF, that a lot more people would buy it through there, and then it would drive the price up even more. I haven't seen any real reasons why people thought that this should be necessary beyond that, because when you think about it, that would really only make it potentially could make it more volatile, because people would only be doing it for, like, everyone who's using an ETF, a Bitcoin ETF, is only doing it for money-making investment purposes. They're not doing it because they want to use Bitcoin, because you can't use it in an ETF. You can't buy and sell with Bitcoin that's in an ETF, just like you can't buy and sell with gold or anything else that's in an ETF. You can buy and sell the gold that's theoretically in the ETF. That's a whole other issue if they even have something to back it. So that's one issue, is that I think it would just make it even more of a speculative type asset, and it doesn't do anything to encourage people to actually use Bitcoin in commerce. And that's really the only thing that's going to make Bitcoin long-term less volatile and have a lot of people want to use it, is if it becomes much more widespread and used much more commonly for actually purchasing things. What they need to do is get it towards used in like a Venmo sort of way, or PayPal, where when people are like paying their friends for, oh, I owe you $7 for that movie ticket, or, you know, $15 for my half of the meal or whatever, they just send Bitcoin to each other. That's the type of thing that they want to happen. People buying and selling it because they think it's going to go up or down a little bit over the next few days or weeks, that's only going to serve to make it even more volatile, even more viewed as just some sort of speculative asset and not something that you actually use for commerce. Another reason I don't think it really is that important is, and Peter Schiff had mentioned this a lot, he's definitely I think he's a little harsh on Bitcoin, but because he's a big gold guy, and for some reason Bitcoin and gold people tend to butt heads, which they don't need to. I think they both have their place, and it just depends on what you're looking for and what you believe the future is going to hold. But he was right in this regard, and that is that with something like real estate, you know, like a real estate investment trust, or different types of ETFs like that, even the gold and silver, the reason that you have an ETF is so that you have a much more easy way of buying something, usually a physical item, or something that it takes a lot of money to buy, usually like a share of the Dow or something like that, since you don't want to go out and spend $20,000 to get one, you know, Dow or whatever, I don't even know what you'd call it, or one stock or something like that. You just would buy shares of the ETF, and you can put as much money as you want into it and get partial shares or whatever. And it's a lot easier to get something, instead of having to go buy and pick up physical gold that you're just going to have to sell again soon because you're doing it for speculative purposes, and you would have to pay for either shipping or transaction fees and all that stuff. You can just buy it through your normal stockbroker and then sell it quickly without having to touch it at all. With Bitcoin, you don't really have those issues. You can already buy fractional Bitcoins. You can spend as much as you want, and it's already a digital currency, so there's very little logistics involved with purchasing. I will say it would be slightly easier. There is a little bit of a learning curve to buying Bitcoin, but it's pretty, you know, not that steep. So you can learn fairly easily. I mean, it would only take you a few hours max of looking around, reading, figuring things out, asking a couple questions to certain dealers and stuff to find out, and that's maximum. Most people could figure it out much more quickly than that. How to get a wallet, if you just follow the instructions when you go to these websites, you could have that stuff figured out in like an hour most of the time. So you can just buy Bitcoin directly. There's no real reason, and there's almost no transaction costs to selling it or buying it. They're very small. So an ETF isn't really doing anything for you. I mean, people may think that it sort of legitimizes it, but all I think it would do is really anchor it into that speculative currency or speculative asset type of role, and then people were just hoping that it would make the Bitcoins that they already have go up. If you notice, that's mostly who is championing this ETF, is people who already had Bitcoins. They're already true believers. They are holding their Bitcoins in their wallets and their other things, and they just wanted this ETF because they thought it would get all the normies to start buying or being able to buy and sell Bitcoin and get the price to go up. And I think that they were, at least somewhat right in that respect. But I think some of that was priced in, and that's why you saw a little bit of a pullback. So I don't think this is a big deal. I think it would be much more better for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, alt currencies long term, to try and get themselves into the role of something that's being used daily by people for normal things, buying and selling normal things, using normal type of transactions, paying people back, buying stuff on various websites that accept it. That's what you want to push. Having it be even more viewed as a speculative investment type vehicle is not super helpful. I don't think that would really change much. It would get a little bit more money to flow into it, but that might only serve to make it even more volatile, because all of those people that are going to have it for an ETF are only doing it, like I said, for speculative investment purposes. None of the people who owned an ETF would actually be using those Bitcoins ever, because they wouldn't even have access to them really. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching.